I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Debbie, here with Nkechi Okoro Carroll, creator and producer of NBC's missing persons drama Found. NK, the
Yeah.
crime drama, missing persons drama, it's a staple in American television. So, what was it about Found that sets it apart from other series in the genre that people maybe aren't aware of before they come into the show?
Well, I think the thing that sets it apart is it is as much about the characters' lives as it is about the cases they solve every week. And their cases are very specific. It is about the missing ones in marginalized communities that often don't get looked for in the same way. And so that in itself sort of sets it apart from what we normally see in our missing person shows. But then there is a sort of thriller-esque serialized storyline that carries us through the season that sort of explains our hero's journey and why she is the way she is.
Yeah, and Gabby, played by Shanola Hampton, is fierce. She's so compelling as a leading lady. Did it take you long to cast that? I mean, that's such a pivotal character in the show. If she doesn't work out, the show's not going to work. So tell me about that.
Absolutely. I mean, the role of Gabby Mosley, she is a woman who as a teenager was kidnapped and held in captivity for a year, saved herself, and then grew up and swore she'd never let it happen to anyone else. So you think about a character of that magnitude and the depth that has to be portrayed in that character. And yeah, if you don't find the right leading lady, the show's done. And so the role was actually originally written for someone slightly younger than our Gabby Mosley today. And then I was on a Zoom meeting with Shanola Hampton for a directing gig because she also directs. And we were just getting started with casting the pilot. And I just kept looking at her on the Zoom. And poor Shanola, because she's doing the whole thing and she's doing her directing presentation and it's fantastic, but I just kept staring at her. And finally she was like, "Is everything okay?" And I was like, "Can I send you a script? Just read it. No pressure. Let me know what you think." And she was like, "Okay, sure." And so I sent her that script. And I think in the time it took me to drive home after that Zoom, she'd read it. My inbox was just flooded with emails from her that were all one line. It was just like, "Oh my God, I must play Gabby. This is crazy. What is happening? Where is this set up?" And that is how we found our Gabby Mosley. I texted my fellow producers, I texted the studio and told them I was convinced I'd found our woman. They all were familiar with Shanola's work. Everyone was sort of like, "Why didn't we think of that?" And we hit the ground running with making that deal happen.
I don't know what it is exactly. I can't pinpoint. I think it's her eyes, but it's the way that she's able to command the scene is she's very impressive. But we were talking offline. There's a great twist in this show at the end when you realize that, Gabby's doing some great work for marginalized communities and kids and stuff who are missing. But she's got some real skeletons in the closet. So where did that idea come from?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Everything that I create through my production company, the sort of mission of it is to leave the world a little bit of a better place than how I found it. And that was absolutely the intention with Found. But I also knew, it's TV and I love TV. I grew up watching a lot of TV and the twists and the unexpected, those were the things I always loved. And so I knew the show I wanted to make, but I was like, what is that thing that sets it apart that'll keep people tuning in every week? And while they're tuning in for it, hopefully they're also paying attention to, oh, I could do a better job in real life of looking for missing people or paying more attention. And so I realized I wanted to tell a story that was as much about sort of recovery from trauma when healing goes right, which is a significant portion of the cast on the show, and then recovery from trauma when the healing doesn't quite take. And that ends up being our heroine. That's Gabby's story. We think she is the poster child for suffering from trauma, turning it around, turning it into purpose, and becoming this sort of formidable woman, which she is. But we also see by the end of the pilot that she is someone who maybe she didn't quite heal all of the landmines that were planted by what happened to her. And now what happens 20 years later when those get triggered? and you're faced with your demons head on, what do you do? How far is too far to save a life? And that is a question that our character struggles with on an episodic basis.
Isn't it interesting how trauma and so many of us have things that have happened in our lives that affect our trajectory over our lives, that we can explore something so complicated and interesting and compelling on a network show. It doesn't happen all the time, and we expect sometimes when we're watching this genre that we're just going to see procedural and it's just going to be an in and out kind of story. But this is different. And was it difficult for you to make sure that the show was also grounded in that kind of thematic storytelling when you were dealing with the network?
Quite frankly, once we landed at the right network, no. Honestly, I never thought anyone would let me put Gabby Mosley on network TV. I mean, when we say she has demons, but she's our hero. And I just, I love network TV. I love the immediacy of it. I love how big an audience it reaches. I grew up on network TV, so I knew I wanted to do it as a network TV show, but I didn't necessarily have a network TV leading lady in Gabby Mosley. But I was very surprised when NBC was like, no, we get it. We like her. We get that she's working through some stuff. We get that she's not quite the hero we think she is, but she does mean well. And we're rooting for her to heal. And that was so refreshing, so refreshing. And so once we partnered with NBC on this, on a week-to-week basis, as we were sort of going through the scripts and pushing the envelopes. I mean, the pilot is just the beginning. I found myself prepared to have these battles for why we needed to tell these stories and why we needed to tell them this way. And quite frankly, if we were making people feel uncomfortable, then we were doing our job. And I rarely had to fight for it. It'd sort of be that thing where I'd be prepped and start the spiel and they'd be like, no, we get it, go for it. Can't wait to read the script. And we'd be like, oh, okay, thank you. Great. See you on the next notes call. It's been a tremendous, collaborative, phenomenal experience getting found off the ground.
And like, is network TV, what's the best thing? Is it because it's so accessible and you're mainstreaming stories about people that maybe the mainstream don't see all the time? Is that one of the great things about it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's why I love watching it. There's just something about and I promise not to go off on my soapbox, but I do feel like there's something about network TV that's really unifying, right? You talk to your colleague at work about shows you're watching on network TV. You talk to your neighbor about shows you're watching on network TV. And before you know it, people aren't thinking about their differences. People aren't thinking about, sort of what political party someone belongs to. They're just like, oh, we're both unified in Mark Paul Gosselaar is insane as Sir, and we're talking about that. And all of a sudden, there's a connection there with someone maybe you wouldn't have normally talked to. And one of the things I've always feared is that as content moves away from network TV, I worry that are we losing that thing that connects us universally as a community? And so that's why I continue to create network TV. It's why I think Found has done so well on network TV. And I have to say, I kind of love waking up to texts from my family on different coasts that's just, are you kidding me? And what happened with this? And it's that buzz of everyone wants to talk about the previous night's episode that I just feel like I haven't seen in a while. So it's exciting. It's exciting to feel like it's playing a role in sort of unifying people and watching TV again.
So season 1 is still unfurling and it's been a pretty big success. Are we going to get a season 2? What's the story? Do we know?
From your lips to God's ears. I've got fingers, toes, everything crossed. When I originally pitched the show to NBC and when we got the green light, I gave them a 5-season series document. So there's life in the show. And so we're excited that it's been so well received and we are optimistic for more.
Wow. Okay. Well, fingers and toes crossed on that one. Nkechi, thank you for your time today. We're going to bring you back to the panel shortly.
Thank you so much.
I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Peter Hoar, Director of the acclaimed 3rd episode of HBO's The Last of Us. Firstly, Peter, congratulations on your Emmy nomination for
Thank you very much.
Very exciting. Now, what does it mean to you personally and professionally to have shepherded this beautiful, tragic, post-apocalyptic, queer love story?
Um, I mean, it means a huge amount to me personally. I guess I've been doing this for a number of years. No one's ever heard of me before now, obviously, but I have been doing it for a number of years. And recently, I started to find a groove, and I think that's kind of what you hope you will do as a look. I'd like to say filmmaker. I've only ever made TV, but storyteller. Let's say storyteller. You hope that you can align yourself with a story that really talks to you and speaks from the heart. And I recently did a TV show called It's a Sin for HBO Max and Channel 4. And it was a story about 4 gay young men in London in the early 80s and their lives and the onslaught of AIDS, basically. And it was a wonderful, wonderful, human, beautiful show. But I felt for the first time, like, I know how to tell this story. I know what it means. I know how to do it. And I just thought, there you go. I've done it. That's my thing. I did that show. And then that not only do I get to do it again with another a queer love story, I also get to do my other thing that I love, which is sci-fi. And to have both of them together was just a gift. Honestly, it was just the most amazing thing. I said yes to doing the show based on the title, The Last of Us, because I'm a big gamer as well. And so I just said, a colleague of mine, Rose Lamb, who was one of the line producers, said, "Are you interested?" I said, "Yes, I'll do it. Whenever. Tell me when I start." And then they sent the script, and then I read this most stunning piece of writing from Craig Mazin. And I just went, I can't believe they want me to do this. So I took the interview, and then it all went well. And then I did it. And it was, it's an episode of TV, and you come and you go. You're in and out. And you don't always know how well it went, I suppose, is one way of putting it, because you do your job well. And then it came out, and then everybody reacted, and I've never, ever known anything like it. It was incredible.
Yeah, more so than most films these days. When that episode came out, I felt like it was something different in the pop culture. It was a moment. And it was because everyone was on their A game. Craig Mazin is just one of my favorite writers. Evan Bolter, his lensing of that episode just blew me away. And your directing was so breathtaking. And I'm not trying not to be hyperbolic, but I'm curious, like, when, this is a story about what it means to be loved and what it means to love through this particular post-apocalyptic setting. So did that sense of doing something really special permeate on set during production?
I say we all, I mean, I guess yes, it did. I was going to say we all, meaning, Evan Bolter, a wonderful DP, and Murray and Nick and Pedro and Bella. We all knew it was an amazing piece of writing. Obviously, Pedro and Bella had been in other episodes as well, so they kind of knew it was going really well anyway. But they were very much at the beginning of that journey, finding their characters. Their characters were changing as we, every day as the journey unfolded. But I think we all knew we had something special. We all worried that we would perhaps overcomplicate it, overthink it, when we knew we had the best guide that we could have ever had. And I guess as a director, I tend to, again, I think my job is not to be noticed. My job is to tell the story so well that you don't even notice what I did, and you don't feel like there was a director present. It just sort of happened to you, and it washes over you in a good way. And I think, that was my goal. That was what I wanted to do. But also from day one, when I arrived and they went, "Oh, hi, who are you?" And I, Peter Hoar. And they were like, "Oh, right, well, which episode are you doing?" And I said, well, secrets. It was episode 4. It's now episode 3, but it was episode 4. So I said, episode 4. And without fail, all of the cast and crew were like, "Oh my God, that's my favorite. Oh my God, that episode. Oh, it breaks my heart." So I kind of got this feeling that it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just us at the front line. It was a lot of people reading this thing going, wow. So again, it was like, we just have to do it well. We just have to do it justice.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, it's so much pressure. And it helps that you have Nick Hoffman and Murray Bartlett at the number 1 and number 2 or whatever on the call sheet. some of their best work to date in their careers. What did you most value about each of them and what they brought to this particular episode?
Wow. I mean, Murray is, well, look, firstly, they are both two of the most generous, big-hearted individuals you'll ever meet. I think that meant a big deal. We were, when you cast, Murray was already in place. I not worked with Murray before, but HBO had. HBO sung his praises and said, look, we really think you should meet this guy. This is to Craig, because we think he's perfect. And Craig agreed. And then Murray was in. Murray was going to do Frank. But we had to scramble a bit, basically, because we did lose an actor due to COVID. And not completely lost. I mean, as in couldn't do the job because schedules went the wrong way, and so we talked about, and I was lucky enough to be part of that conversation. And it was one of those things. Nick Offerman. Everybody was going, Nick Offerman. It's like too good to be true. It's like obvious, right? Because of what Bill mostly is. But the other part of what Bill is unknown with Nick Offerman, and honestly, hilariously funny, brilliant mind, really a practical guy, and that of course helped because half the things started breaking or whatever, and he'd be like, "Oh, that's not right. Let me pick that up and I'll fix that, put that back where it should go." And but I think his open heart nature, he's just a good guy, and he knew also that he had to do the best by it. He knew it was that good. He in fact almost turned it down because he didn't think he was good enough to do it. He thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. And he also thought his schedule was not working. And his wife, who I owe everything to, Megan, said, you're going to Calgary. So he did. And look, it's, as I said, it's episodic TV. So we didn't have a great amount of time, if any, to rehearse or to discuss. We had one big dinner where we all mostly talked about other things. And I think they went straight into fittings because they had all of these prosthetics for aging. So we didn't really see them much, and we were prepping and they were getting all these things done. And then we just sort of came together on set, and they just worked so well together. And again, that's why casting is so important, because you do get the magic when you get it right. And it just worked. It wasn't over. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too little. They just worked as a couple, and they were just great. They were just great to watch. Really amazing.
My final question is that final shot, because it seems so simple on the page, or however the first came out.
It wasn't on the page.
It wasn't on the page, was it? Because it's just that made me so sad in a good way. Talk me through that.
Yeah. So basically, it wasn't actually on the page. And it's the only real moment I can claim as my own, because Craig is such a genius. But we had all talked, Craig and I and Neil Druckmann, the game creator, we'd all talked about the not screensaver, but they have like a menu screen on the game. And it's an open window. It's a house that's been decayed, destroyed, and then greenery is grown all over it, and then there's this very gently blowing sort of net curtain in the window, and that is a very evocative image. It's just so oddly still and kind of beautiful, but very terrifying. And so we all thought that was an incredible thing, and we were like, how can we make this how can we do this? And Craig initially wanted it every episode to start that way. Or in the grand plan, it was that HBO would have a completely different interface on their system, so that you would press play on each episode with this window image. Obviously, that didn't happen, but I just took it and ran with it, really. And I guess I was thinking, I also had the first proper domestic scene in episode became 3. I had a house and I had windows, so it just seemed to all fall into place for me, because I had the perfect position. I had the perfect story point when we had Joel and Ellie driving away in the car, in the truck, which is the only reason for the story to happen in the game. You go to Billstown so you can get that truck. That's really all it's about. You do have to fight a lot of zombies on the way, but that level is about get that truck and then move on to the next level. So there they go away into the distance. And I was like, here it is. This is my moment. And I think a lot of people worried that I was trying to suggest that we'd see bodies and sort of decaying corpses. And I was like, no, 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 no. I just want to see them again. I sort of want to say goodbye to them properly before they go, before we disappear completely and never come back. And I think we had these little beats of the gates being left open, which Bill would never have done. All of the flowers dying that Frank would never have let happen. But yeah, it was kind of melancholic, basically. It was kind of beautiful and kind of a farewell. So
it was, it was the perfect ending to a perfect episode. Thank you, Peter, for your time today. We'll bring you back shortly for the panel.
Thank you very much.
I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Mimi Leder, Director and Producer on The Morning Show. Mimi, you have been obviously in this industry for a long time. I remember when you won your first Emmy for Love Labour's Lost in 1995, back when I was only 3 years old.
Yeah.
It's been, and you were only a teenager. How has TV, I know it's an obvious question, but how has your life changed in terms of being a director on TV from ER days to morning show? What's the biggest change?
Well, I still wake up with a lot of fear, and that hasn't changed. No matter how well you know your craft or a story, it's, that imposter syndrome, when are they going to find out? And then it's this, it's a very motivating factor. And, but I guess having worked so long in television in so many different genres, it gives you quite a bit of confidence. And, I still do shot lists because I need to do them. For me, I need to block the whole thing out. I just need to write it out, and then I never look at it. And that's something I do still. And what has changed? It's just, you want to tell the story from the most authentic point of view you can tell it from. And so that hasn't changed. Only the confidence, I would say, has changed. You get smarter, you get better, and you don't want to rely on old tricks. You don't want to really steal from yourself, but maybe others. And I don't know.
Yeah, I get it. I was so happy to have the UBA morning show family back. It's been a while, and after season 2, which really blew me away especially with the death of Mitch Kessler, I just felt like the first episode back was chaos, controlled chaos. So much going on. We're trying to catch up with what's been happening. Yeah. When you take on an episode like that, and you typically do the first and the last, and maybe a couple interspersed in the middle of the season, how much of a challenge is that? Because you're bringing the audience back, and it's got to be good, or otherwise we're just going to be feeling lost.
Yeah, it's a big challenge, and you're saying where everybody has been, where and that actually is the least exciting part of it. The most exciting part of it is taking the big swings, like going to space. Oh, our characters are going to space. Oh, okay, we have to build a rocket ship. All right, what does it look like? What does it feel like? How are we going to do it? We don't have a budget to do that. You take those big swings, and they're fun, and you float in zero gravity, and meeting our new character, John Hamm, he walks in, he's this tech billionaire, and he forces all the characters to declare themselves, and he becomes this accelerant in the story. And he's very complicated, and UBA's in trouble, and you're setting that up. And also, I block shoot the first 2 episodes, so the second episode was the hack. And one day you're shooting episode 2, and one day you're in Texas shooting your actors in dune buggies, and it's having great conflict with each other, and everything's through our character's point of view, and it's a lot of fun. But it's a very big show. It's very deceiving, actually, how big it is. And that's exciting, because it is.
It is big. It's huge. I I'm like, are they really going to do the space thing, or is this just all a big tease and it's not going to happen? Oh no, it happened. Like, what comes to mind first of all when you realize, yeah, we're doing space now on the morning show, and it's not going to be something stupid and silly that doesn't work. It would completely work, just especially for those characters.
It took months of prep actually to shoot the interior of the space capsule in one day, to do all the zero gravity, to, we were in production, so our actors were working and acting, and to get them on in harnesses to feel comfortable with doing flips. It takes a lot of core. And so there's a lot of preparation. The palette of the spaceship, the music, we chose opera, we made it a ballet, trying though to do it through our characters' eyes, what they were going through at that moment. So it took a lot, it takes a lot to prepare for space, and a lot of green screen, and a lot of sets that we had to build. And it's big, but I had a little experience with Deep Impact,
Yeah.
flying guys in zero gravity, and it was fun. It was a ton of fun.
And then you mentioned the hack. It's completely different aesthetic to the show, because it just that felt so much more intimate, terrifying. And can you talk me through completely pivoting and then doing something like that, where, I think a lot of us have dealt with something like that before in this day and age of cyber security. Talk me through that.
Well, I can say that, shooting the hack was very exciting. You jump into handheld mode, you jump into chaos, and I love chaos, and I live in chaos. And I mean, in terms of filmmaking, not in my personal life, I don't love it so much. But you just, the story leaves these breadcrumbs, and you follow it, and then you design it, and then you put it on its feet. And it was it was challenging, and it was a lot of fun. It brought me back to it's not the style in which we shoot the show. I do shoot the show sometimes. I've brought more handheld into it this season, because our characters are very unsettled, and it just felt like it worked. And the hack was really fun to shoot with our actors who aren't used to doing that kind of work, but they loved it.
It's good to mix things up and just to give people a different kind of flavor every once in a while. And that's such a good thing about this show. For me, although I absolutely adore these characters now and I care about them and I want to know more about what they're doing, I love how the show walks this tightrope between being current and topical, and also prioritizing storytelling. I love the topical stuff. I love how the show leaned into abortion rights and journalistic integrity and all those things. Is that particularly difficult on this show to walk that balance between the two?
No, I think we're a show about news. And so, first season was Me Too. And then of course we concluded with the Mitch Kessler, and then COVID. And, this year we really wanted to tackle the truth. What is the truth? It's an endangered species, and abortion rights, and minority rule. And those are easy topics. They're hard topics, but they're easy to tackle in the framework of our show through our characters' eyes. And, with Bradley having had an abortion when she was 15. And, there are so many topics in our show. And we are constantly walking the line between, because we play it right up here. It's authentic, it's real, it's grounded, but sometimes it's absolutely ridiculous. These are kind of ridiculous people who get paid a lot of money, and their problems are somewhat high class problems. And it's and then we dealt with systemic racism in our show in episode 3 with Nicole Bahari's character discovering, after the hack, discovering these racist emails about her. And so we like to dig into big subjects, important subjects. I mean, the show is kind of funny and ridiculous, but it's also about something that really matters.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. We can go off into the clouds with these crazy people, but we can also be grounded as well. And that's what the show does so beautifully. Mimi, thank you for your time today. We're going to bring you back shortly.
Sure, thank you.
I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with John Hoffman, co-creator and producer on Only Murders in the Building. Firstly, John, congratulations once again on your Emmy nominations for Only Murders Season 2, which we still haven't.
I know, it's very confusing this year. Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much.
It's very confusing. I love Season 3. It's whimsical, funny, but I think most importantly for a show that's hitting Season 3, it's fresh. And looking back to when the season was being mapped out and written, was there much anxiety about matching or exceeding the success of the first 2 seasons?
That's a great question. I was just listening to Mimi. I've been loving all of these conversations, but you know, the anxiety is perpetual, no matter what, in many ways, because you're always questioning, you're always sort of like examining to find what feels like the best choices. And I don't really tend to think about last season when sort of putting together and mapping out a new season with the writers and with our producing team. I really do love the process of grappling with it and grasping at the end of it all what it all wants to say when you get to it all. So it's a big process in putting a season together. I'm in the midst of it right now on a season 4. But in this one, certainly anxiety came in the thrill of having some extraordinary new cast members. And so there was a feeling of, oh my God, we really might have to step it up here in a certain way that I felt underneath everything. But it was also that opportunity was so great. And I guess I decided early on with that extraordinary opportunity to sort of say, let's just triple down here and go for something of scale that we haven't tried to hit before and be a bit ambitious. You know, everything about the setup was theatrical in its nature. So a heightened ambition felt of a piece with what I was hoping to make happen with the story and with the execution of the season for sure. Yeah.
I think the addition of some great actors on this season didn't hurt. Paul Rudd particularly, but there's this other female actress. She's a small independent, Meryl something. No, I'm kidding.
So make a good way for herself, I think, after this. Yeah,
she's gonna go places, that one. You know, I know it's so cliche to rave about Meryl Streep, but honestly, after everything she has done in her career, this is some of her best work. Like she really, and that's a really high bar. What was that like, having Meryl Streep in your show and really hitting it out of the park?
I can't even talk about it really, because I couldn't really think too hard on it. And the greatest, in order to do it, honestly, because if I had that grand person there, it would be very challenging in many ways. But I do think she has this wonderful gift of popping that grand bubble for everyone she works with in this very beautiful, real way. And she really looks to connect, and she's very clear about it when she's connecting, and that feels reassuring. And the way she understood the character from the first moment I zoomed with her and shared it, and had this remarkable synchronicity moment with her on the character. And I described how we started the season and in an episode that I was going to direct, and I had in my mind for a while about how we introduced her character on a stage. But being as a 10-year-old girl, first in her Broadway, first Broadway visit with her mother from St. Louis. And I walked her through on a Zoom, just this 10-year-old girl seeing a production of No Strings in the 60s. And I didn't get any further than that. And she said, I saw that production with Diane Carroll. And I said, you what? and because it was a nice hit, but it wasn't like everyone, no, not a lot of people saw that production. And she said, I think I was about 10. I said, well, I had done the math on that one, but I was very much like, oh my God. And then she said, and then in the Zoom, she said, and then I'll never forget it because Diane sang this song and she started to sing the song that opens our season. And I said, okay, I'm going to pass out, Meryl, because I need you to stop this for a minute and understand I'm going to send you episode 1 after we hang up this Zoom. And you're going to see on page 1 the lyric you just sang to me now on page 1 of our script. And so that felt like a great comfort to have the connection that I need in my own experience of working. I need to know that I understand every beat of everything, certainly to direct, certainly to lead a room and find our way there. But to have that communication with her, along with our incredible trio and Paul and everybody else, everybody just was in the same water as we moved downriver on this one, and it just felt extraordinary.
And then also, I mean, by the way, that's an amazing story.
It's great.
Death rattle dazzle journey
Yeah.
for this season. The journey that this musical took over the season was so interesting to me because the music played such a massive role. Like Siddhartha Khosla's music on the show is so divine, but this was another added element which just gives you even more potential for chaos and things not working out. So what was that anxiety like, bringing the music in?
Thank God for everybody musically on this show. And I mean, really, Sid Khosla, I couldn't say enough about, as you know, how I feel about Sid and his work. It's stunning. And adding in Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, which was a remarkable lucky stroke, thanks to a co-writer of episode 1 of season 3, Sass Goldberg, who happened to know them. And in the first meeting in our writer's room, she said, who are you thinking for composers? I said, well, I have a list, but there's at the top of the list are Pasek and Paul, and they just feel right. And she said, oh, let me text them. And she texted them, and we weren't done with our first day in the writer's room, and Pasek and Paul had said, we're in. And I was like, what? And so from that moment, that became the most collaborative, amazing process with them, where I could really walk them through the stories of what we were telling. The important part of introducing this musical was that it serviced our storytelling, and it didn't take us out of Only Murders and our narrative that we needed. The music had, and the play itself, this insane leap of Death Rattle Dazzle, had to still tie in thematically and tie into the stories we were telling for our characters and the mystery. And so they understood that in a way that we could have these Zooms with each other. And I would say, okay, it's a song about the Pickwick triplets. I mean, obviously, you know, and it's a setting, and we'd walk through all of that. And then they would go off and they brought these incredible other people with them: Sarah Bareilles, Mark Shaman, Scott Whitman, Michael R. Jackson. I mean, it was incredible. And then what I would get back were these stunning pieces that felt so beyond anything I could have ever dreamed of. So it was a season of manifesting or just miraculous touchstone connections where everybody felt like they stepped up in some way. And at the bottom of it, though, thematically, I didn't realize it for a while, but again, like looking for the confidence of being able to write this thing, being able to sort of lead this charge on this thing in some ways. I always need the internal connection to it. And I guess I didn't realize until later that I had lost my mother a year before. And it took so long for me to realize, oh, underneath all of this is this theme of mothers and protection and all of that thing that we come around to fully, certainly in the back half of the season. And so in some ways that feeling was permeating or emanating in some ways from me in this way. And I think also it's an easily relatable one, certainly with Meryl, certainly with Selena, certainly, you know, I think the touchstones of all of that. Linda Emond, who was genius as Donna. I mean, And yeah, so sorry, I'm blabbing, but yes, all of that tied into the music, tied into the storytelling and everything else.
And then final question, who was responsible for that final twist? Because I was gutted when I thought it was who I thought it was. And then when I realized who it was, I was still very, very upset about the whole thing. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. That's crazy.
Yeah, I love that character. I love that person who plays that character. Spoil Rob. But yeah, that was an ingenious notion from one of our producers, brilliant producers along the way. My right-hand guy here on the team was Jess Rosenthal. And I remember when he came into my office and said, so here's a thought. And I was like, uh-oh, I really like it and I hate it all at once, which is a very good thing. And yet the really like it was so clear for me because of where it could go in a new direction for us. In a potential hopeful season 4 at that time, but it felt very, very specific in that way. So off we are.
Wow, I can't wait. In the meantime, we're going to bring you back for our panel shortly. Thank you, John, for your insights today.
Thanks, Rob.
I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Sterlin Harjo, co-creator and producer on Reservation Dogs. Sterlin, what legacy will Res Dogs leave for TV and pop culture in years to come, do you think?
I mean, I think that anytime you can create something that is the first of its kind is very special. I don't know, I think that legacy is a weird word because I can't predict, but, I hope that people recognize it as a very truthful show and something that spoke to the human experience, not just Native people's experience, but something that was very specific and was able to reach out and really touch people from all walks of life. I think that is the legacy that it leaves behind.
Yeah, I think that's spot on because it's not like I was very familiar with stories about people from Oklahoma and about people from Indigenous backgrounds. And yet, as groundbreaking as the series is as a showcase for those communities and storytellers, it's so relatable and universal as a show about coming of age and community and family. Do you get that feedback often from fans of the show about what it means to them?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the most overwhelming, I think, is just the feedback that I get from fans from everywhere, and how relatable it is for people. I come from a really small town, and Reservation Dogs is based on that town and based on my experience. So it's like, it's very interesting and kind of a crazy thought to have created something that reaches so many people. I think that the flood of personal messages about what the show has done for people has been one of the sweetest and most overwhelmingly great things about making this show.
When you first embarked on it years ago now, time flies. Was it difficult to pitch and then finally land a show where you're saying Indigenous voices are not only going to be front and center on screen, but it's actually going to be behind the camera as well? You're going to control that narrative. Was there any pushback, or was that a pretty easy sell for you?
Yeah, not at the moment. Diversity got really cool in the last few years. So it felt like an easy conversation to have. But I feel like I've been working on it since I was young. So it's a really weird, it's a hard thing to answer because I've been working towards this for so long. And I knew that, I wanted to show Native humor, but also just the truth of our communities and how we live. And there's been a perpetual lie that's been sort of put on us and that we fed into ourselves, I think, since the beginning of it was in books and movies and TV shows up until the last few years. And, I don't know. I think that it wasn't hard because by the time I had got here, my philosophy on why this was important was solidified. Also, having Taika Waititi walk you into FX and him telling you to tell them to listen to you really helps a lot too. And on top of that, FX has been really great to work with and just gave me the freedom. And they never asked a question about having Native people behind the camera. And, you know, obviously with Atlanta, they did some similar things. So I think that they recognized that there were strengths in that, and it wasn't them sort of accepting something or having to agree or be pushed into. It was something that would make the show better.
Absolutely. You know, I love how certain shows like Reservation Dogs are really good at making us think and also really good at making us laugh. That's a really difficult thing to get right. And I'm wondering how challenging was it for you day to day to gauge when to shift in any particular scene between the comedy and the dramatic elements? Like in most melancholy elements in life, sometimes it can be inexplicably funny, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think that you know, I'm just attracted to that kind of storytelling. I mean, if I have to stay with one sort of genre, for lack of a better word, it would be comedies that are dramatic and dramas that are comedic, you know. And I think that you know, like Taika and I, before we even worked on this, we talked a lot about like Hal Ashby films and even Robert Altman, and you know, I think that those films really capture both. And I don't know. I don't know that it's a trick. I don't know that it's hard because it's fairly effortless to me. I think it might be the way that I grew up. I think it might be the way that stories were told around my kitchen table. I think that as Native people, you're born into a rebellion. I mean, you're literally the rebel. You're literally born into this fight. And even if it's not a fight in your life, you know that your ancestors went through a fight, and you know that you're here by the grace of God and people that came before you. So that's all in you, and that's dramatic. And then also, I think that our humor is a way to survive. So those things just blend together. And I'm not saying that we have the copyright on that, but like, that's what I'm drawn to. And that's what I think a lot of Native people are drawn to. It just so happens to also be like one of my favorite ways of telling stories. And it also happens to be a lot of people's, like a lot of people love it. Like a lot of people enjoy that sort of, you know, roller coaster of like, go back and forth. And I think that, I don't know, it's never something that I'm thinking about all day. I think about it when I write, but it comes out naturally. And then when we're shooting, you know, you might shoot something different that's comedy or dramatic, you know, you might approach it differently, but for the most part, it's in the script and it's baked into the DNA of the story. So yeah, it's not super.
I still think like you got credit where credit's due. I think it can come across forced or just not earned, and I just felt like I never felt that way watching this show. And I always felt so comfortable being able to have a really good belly laugh and then to feel this gut punch within minutes. And that is so special.
It was abusive a little bit.
Yeah. I know you get a lot of questions about why did you end it now? And I've read a lot of those interviews and I totally understand and get where you're coming from. I'm more interested actually in when you decided it's time to close the shop down and where you're moving on. What was those last final days or moments even on set like? Was it just run of the mill, or was it something that was it a core memory?
It was something that I think had been there since the writer's room, but I didn't know because, you know, we were into the shoot when we were finishing some of the last episodes. And I remember writing the episode, having Tasba and Mig as the writing producers come over, and we read the script together. And it was kind of like this breathtaking moment of like all of us recognizing and looking at each other that that's it, you know, like that's the way we should end it. You know, originally I'd wanted to do a whole season of the 1970s. There's one episode in season 3 of the 1970s that didn't work out. And it felt like it would be forced if I tried to go further than that. It was always going to end at this moment. I thought there might be some more in between by the time we get there. But as I was writing it, it was like, oh no, this is it. There was something really emotional, something really gratifying, something very sad. I love these characters. I love this world. And I love that we were able to end it when we thought it should be ended, you know. I think that that's very important. And every episode, every character is based on someone in my life. So it's very personal to me. And so ending it was not an easy decision, you know. It was tough. And I went to set, and first thing that I did was I grabbed all the actors and all the kids, and just told them this might be happening. You know, like, I realized last night this might be happening. I don't know if it's going to happen, but like, this might be happening. There was disbelief, there were hugs, there were like, hell yes, you know, but in the end it did, and it felt good.
So cool. So thank you for your time today. We'll bring you back right now for our panel. I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby. I am delighted to introduce this panel of amazing artists in this industry. So exciting. First of all, Nkechi Okoro Carroll, who found Peter Hoar from The Last of Us, Mimi Leader from The Morning Show, John Hoffman from Only Murders in the Building, and last but not least, Sterlin Harjo from Reservation Dogs. Folks, my first question is this, and I'm going to go probably to John first of all, because even though this doesn't apply to you, I think it's something that we've all been through. How challenging is it in this day and age, with so much amazing work that's out there, to stand out in a crowded and chaotic marketplace of content and distraction? Is the worst fate for you to do something that you love, your labor of love, and it just gets ignored? Or would you rather people love it, or not love it, but hate it? What's more upsetting?
Okay, I'm nervous I'm going to be the first one up because I talk a lot. So jump in, really jump in, everybody. But this is a tough one because I've certainly been in both camps, and I like both camps, truthfully. I like the ones that are done for love, and the ones that are small and that get either not seen by enough people, and I love it still even more later. It was a project I worked for HBO on a show called Looking with Murray Bartlett, by the way, Peter, and I concur about Murray Bartlett and the beauty of him. But yeah, that, you know, and that was a heartbreaker in many ways when it had to come to an end, and it was all done with such love. But you know, it's no secret. It takes a small village to really make something stand out beyond what hopefully you've brought to it. It's a concert that has to come together, and you just hope people believe in it enough to invest in the way that it needs to be seen and brought forth. And I can't believe it, honestly. It is not where I sit naturally, truthfully, to think big mainstream sort of hit of any kind, but it is a rare air that I understand, that feels incredible to sort of have this opportunity. But you know, and I never really know. I'm making the thing, so I don't really trust when people say it's a thing. So I you know, I'm just trying to keep head down and just say, you liked it? Oh, great. And Mimi, you were saying before, I like, you know, in my mind, if I could, we'd finish season 3 with Meryl and Paul and everyone famous in it, and we would all just come together, and I would show a screening of the whole season to that crew only, hand them DVDs, and just say, go put that on your shelf, and that's all we need to do, and it doesn't have to go out to the world. I once the world comes as a whole other thing, but that's not the way it works. But it is, and fortunately, it's been a lovely ride here.
You know, when you have done so much, or when you have done different shows, and it's like your children, you love all your children. You can't love them less, one more than the other. And when we did The Leftovers, when I did it with Damon Lindelof and this extraordinary group of artists, you know, we were critically acclaimed. People loved the show, but people didn't see the show, and it hurt, and it wasn't recognized. And it really was a profound piece of work. And like, it was like, someone doesn't love my baby, you know, but the experience of it was, you know, life-changing. And that's what you take home with you.
think that's why we all do it, right? I think it has to come from a place of love. I mean, getting a TV show made is just such a, I mean, I'm raising 2 kids and I'm still like, there is nothing like show running shows and getting them onto TV and what it takes to sort of make the whole thing work. And so it has to come from a place of love. Otherwise, none of us would be standing at the end of it. And so, you know, you kind of take that with you and you hope people enjoy it and you hope people get out of it sort of what it gave you to put into it, but you sort of have to just let it be that and then move on to the next thing. Because truly, none of us are really in control of whether our shows, as much as we would love to think we are, we're really not in control about whether our shows become hits or critically acclaimed or lots of viewers or no viewers. We just kind of have to do what we do and do it with love. And then you hand over your child, like Mimi said, and you're like, okay, please treat it kindly. And then you go raise your other kids.
Yeah.
What about you, Sterling?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's degrees of love. There's
Favorite child, right?
exactly. I mean, like, you know, I love Reservation Dogs. I mean, part of it why I ended was like, I couldn't imagine someone coming to me and saying, yeah, time to wrap this up. It's dragging on, you know, like should have ended 2 seasons ago. I mean, that would have been such a personal attack to me because it's like based on my family. It's also like this cultural, like tight wire walk that I'm doing of like, you know, I felt that pressure, you know, like showrunning's hard enough, but then there's cultural pressure of like, do not screw this up, you know?
You didn't screw it up.
Thank you.
No.
It's brilliant.
Thank you. And then, you know, but then I have other shows that I still love, but they won't, you know, like I wouldn't go to war for them, you know, like I like it's okay if they don't get made or they're not a hit, you know, but like I love them, you know. So yeah, there's degrees.
And the same goes for you, Peter, right? Like,
Well, I mean, look, I'm not as luminary as my colleagues here. I've been a jobbing director for most of my career, and most, you know, and most of it is like, oh, what? Somebody wants to give me a job? This is great. What is it? Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll do it anyway. And so that excites me. And then, and like you know, you've been saying, NK was saying about love for the medium. I grew up with TV and kid of the 70s, and before Star Wars and even after Star Wars, I still watched TV and told everybody how brilliant it was, and nobody believed me until now, because this is where it's at, and I've just always loved it. I've always loved its intimacy and its storytelling, its long form, and you know, so I do think that the love, I think I put the same amount of love into everything, but because I love the medium and love the story, but you know, it doesn't always coincide with the way the rest of the world is ready to see it. You know, and I mean, actually, I mentioned to you in our little chat about It's a Sin that I did years ago, and that came out during a lockdown for COVID, and it's about, you know, a killer virus, HIV. So we were like, nobody's going to watch this. Nobody wants to see this right now. And we were very wrong, because they did, and they bawled their eyes out. And I think that's becoming a theme. I think I like making people cry. I hope not around the production meeting table, but you know.
You did that, that's for sure. You know, I love film, don't get me wrong, love movies more than anything, but TV is where it's at. You're so right. TV.
Well, you know, we were talking about stealing things, right? And the weird thing is, I'll go to a meeting and pitch a show, and I will steal everything from from movies. I will be talking about Spielberg and Scorsese and Fincher and all of these great people that I love. I really love. But I don't want to make those films. I want to make those TV shows, because that feels like the narratives are more akin to me. They make sense to me. And sometimes, and also, I don't know about you guys, but how does anybody get a film made? It's just crazy. It's like, unless you are, you know, a great luminary like Mimi, then maybe you can walk in and say, I want this movie and I want it now. But I just don't know how anyone does it. I really don't. It's crazy.
I was just going to say, you know, when I'm directing a TV show versus a feature, I actually do not approach them any differently, you know, at all, except for maybe what format I'm going to shoot it in terms of how I want the framing. You know, if you're shooting the Supreme Court, you've just got to, you know, not be in 235. You'll never see it. But I think storytelling is storytelling.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
So let's talk about representation and inclusion on TV, because it comes up a lot, and I'm looking at the five of you and thinking that who better to talk about it than with you, despite all the progress that we've seen. What more can the industry do for communities like Black communities, Indigenous, LGBTQ, and others? I think all of you can speak to women leading their shows like NK and Mimi. Who would like to regale me first? Perhaps NK. What do you think?
I mean, look, I am a Nigerian girl who grew up in West Africa, who's running 3 network shows right now. Like, that would not have happened, 10 years ago. So I'm a benefactor of the progress. And I'm also one of those people that's like holding the door wide open, because I'm like, while I'm here, let's go. Like, let's get as many through the pipeline as possible. And I think that's the thing we need to continue to do, is not just to sort of kick the door open for ourselves, but to hold it open for the next generation. All of my fellow writer producers on my show, everyone who works in my production company, understands that mentoring is a requirement of the job. We must train up and bring up the next generation. If someone is coming off one of my shows or coming out of one of my writers' rooms, whatever show they land on next, they will not be able to say that they can't produce their episodes, or they don't understand TV, or they don't understand character. It's important to me because I don't know, this world changes every day. And I don't know, you never know when the pendulum is going to swing. And so I feel a responsibility, and quite frankly, it's just something I also love to do, to make sure I am sort of bringing up that next generation in a way that will allow for their longevity and their voices in this industry. And I think that's how we get these diverse voices and these diverse storytelling. And it's how we end up with, women like Shanola Hampton, who's got beautiful dreadlocks leading an NBC show as an anti-hero. There's so much that I hadn't seen in TV before, even just a few years ago, that I see so many people doing now that I'm inspired by and in awe of, and I'm trying to achieve as well. So there's been progress made. There's still a long way to go, but I think we're how we do it. And we can't just kind of do it for ourselves and chill where we are. We've got to bring up that next generation with us.
Right. Yeah, I think that, on my show, we created 5 or 6 new TV directors and writers. I mean, first time doing it. And I think the proof is in the pudding, the project. And it's like, but there is a problem I see of, it's not about diversity box checking. It's not about having a department to make sure that you take a meeting. It's about real opportunity, and that's what we gave on the show, was real opportunity. I also am holding the door open and trying to get as many people in there as possible. It's like, and it wouldn't have worked if I just hired my friends because they were native. Like, I hired talented filmmakers, but you have to do that work. We're not all in Hollywood. We're not all in New York. We are in the places that hire us and in the places where we can get funded. And for me, it was in the middle of the United States in Oklahoma. Like, that's where I got funded, and that's where I made all of my work, and everyone else is a part of their communities. And I think that outreach is good, and learning who is out there is good. And we're in this place where we all can tell stories now on our phones or whatever. And there are really great storytellers out there, and it's the same with casting. I mean, it's like, I had a project that was killed at one point, and Showtime was going to do it. And I had an executive producer on that. This is like 15 years ago. And I had an executive producer on that show who backed out in the last minute because he said, there's no way you could, and he's a very well-known director, has a film out right now. And he's like, there's no way that we could cast a native show. There's not enough actors. And it's like, yeah, there's not enough actors if you're doing it on Hollywood and an open casting call. But if you go into those communities, there's talent everywhere. And that's what we did with the show. We went into communities and we found these actors, and a lot of them had never acted before, but we provided them opportunities. And we didn't just randomly put anyone in the show. We picked talented people that had something to say and that could perform. So I think for me, it's about opportunity. It's about, and I think sometimes whenever we're just giving people an opportunity for a meeting, or it is a diversity box check, then it's always kind of like proof to the higher ups, like, yeah, they're great, but they're never gonna, like we'll just keep doing the meetings, that's what we need. But it's like true opportunity means finding talent. True opportunity means giving them the tools to do what they do best. And I think that's what you're seeing right now. And so that has longevity. That's not something that ends quickly. Like, that has longevity. And each one of those people that I helped in the door, they have their own shows, and they're going to be pulling people along with them as well. And that's how it works. I think it's an exciting time.
And it's great business.
Right.
Yeah. You're talking about, like, if you want to speak in terms like everyone understands, it's great business. Yeah. It's not an altruistic thing. It's not like being socially conscious. It's factually the thing that is going to keep our industry growing and make our storytelling just so expansive that we're pulling in more audiences. It's just plain out good business.
Yeah, it's opening door, and then true representation is what it feels like. Being true about that representation. We're in a show in New York, but I remember, Sterling, you just reminded me, it was like there was a moment when, in season 1 of our show, we had an episode that was drawn from mainly from the POV of a deaf character, and in casting that part, I remember, well, good luck, finding the actor that can pull. I was like, what? I'm in New York, but right. I was happily with like a wealth of incredible talent, and then watched this magnificent thing happen with this actor that played the part, and with the episode itself. And just as you say, Nke, it's like that episode made more noise than anything in the first season, because right. It works, and you recognize something you haven't seen maybe in that way before, but it's true. It's very valuable.
That thing that the execs will always tell you, it's like there'll never be $1 billion movie that's led by a woman and directed by a woman. Oh, wait a minute, I think it just happened. There'll be a great movie that will win an Oscar with a deaf lead.
It's true. It's true. There's always a rule that someone made that just gets broken all the time.
all the time. And it's it's sickening, really. And it does feel like, I agree with Nke about, like the future is there. It's there to be found and to be seen and to be encouraged. But there's also that element of business, which is less palatable, which is the risk taking. There's less risk taking in such times as we are in now. And so they'll look at the choices and go, oh no, that's too much of a risk. I don't know about that. I wouldn't know, And I've been sent many career projects. I'm amazed and wowed by the beautiful stories that I could be possibly telling. And now I am immediately within how many months of success with 2 shows, then it's like, we're not doing that kind of thing anymore. I was like, oh, okay, all right, okay, fine. Right. So I heard that recently,
like from someone saying, they're not doing Reservation Dogs stuff anymore. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we're not
making good TV anymore. Like,
we're not experimenting anymore. Like the Atlantas and the Reservation Dogs are getting made less and less. It's like, are you serious? Like, well, it doesn't make any sense. Like, what? Like everyone just likes a little rule, or like to have to do,
Yeah, it's weird. Agreed. Mimi, final word for you. What do you feel about the representation and what it means to the industry, and what more we can do?
Well, we just have to keep hiring and bringing new faces and new minds to storytelling, to our worlds. I mean, I only hired one white guy. No offense, white guys. All our directors were women and people of color, and you just got to keep hiring. And I've been doing that since China Beach, when I had the ability, when I became a producer, to just bring new voices. And we just, we have to just keep bringing, the elders, as in Reservation Dogs,
Mhm.
the young ones, the young ones. And it's all done through our eyes, each other's eyes. And it's all done through the generation of filmmakers. And it's our job to teach and to mentor and birth these faces and these voices.
Absolutely. Everyone, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for making me laugh, cry, and everything in between. And we really appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Carl.
I love
Thanks.
hearing
Thank you so
everybody.
much. Love all of you.